Welcome back to the Self-Care Summit, where we are learning how to cope in the midst of this global crisis. Today is day number 15. Yay, 15 days. That's amazing.
Woo!
Thank you to all of our volunteer speakers, including Erik, who's here with us today. My name is Melanie Wood. My business is Soul Ease Massage and Mind Body Therapy, and I'm located in Elmira, New York. Erik, who are you and where are you from?
I'm Erik House. I'm from Bath, New York, which is over also in the southern tier. I've also spent a lot of time over in the Hot Valley and some other places. And I run a coaching business called Love Multiplies. We focus on helping people in alternative lifestyles really explore their values and the things that they need to create the relationships and the lives they want.
Awesome. So there's nothing like evolving and moving forward.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, there's so much that we need to be clear on for our lives to be able to move forward.
hmm So when I was emailing with you, you used a word called
Mhm.
psychosynthesis. So psychosynthesis, can you just, I'm so excited for you to get into that. I'm not even going to let you talk about how COVID-19 is affecting you yet. We'll get there. I want the world to know the word
Okay,
psychosynthesis. So could you tell us more about that?
I will do my best because I haven't quite ironed out all of my language around what psychosynthesis is yet, but this will give me nice practice.
It's a
So
broad topic.
psychosynthesis is, it's, yes, that's part of it. Is it can cover so much,
Yeah.
but it is a school of philosophy and psychological thought developed by a Italian psychiatrist by the name of Roberto Assagioli, and I got it right that time.
Yes.
Yes, who was an early student of both Freud and Jung's, but realized early on that Freud was missing some very key elements of the spiritual or the transpersonal aspect of the human experience. And he started developing ideas and practices that help people really dive into and experience um, both the psychological journey of healing and at the same time the spiritual journey of growth.
hmm
So various people about this. John Wellwood wrote a lot about how if we don't have a good psychological well-being, and we're doing spiritual work, we are often bypassing aspects of our pain that we need to deal with in our lives. And
hmm
psychosynthesis really helps us take a deep look at that pain, but also gives us hope and vision and guide to move forward with that.
Excellent, excellent. So psychosynthesis is one of the things that I studied for my own master's degree, and
Oh,
I
mhm.
love, love, love it. And the way that I looked at it was a lot of people when they meditate or they're connecting to divinity, it's infinitely above, infinitely above. Well,
Mhm.
our bodies and what we can feel sensation-wise, pain-wise, emotion-wise is infinitely within as well. So there's
Yes.
a vast playground both above and within, and
Mhm.
you can merge the two with psychosynthesis. So that's my
Oh,
that's
yes.
my
Yeah. That's
experience.
like part of the, yeah, that's the synthesis. That's the realization that, our physical body and our spiritual body are both integrated parts of the same whole. If we ignore the physical body's health, then we will struggle with our spiritual journey. If we ignore our spiritual journey, our physical body starts to suffer as well.
Mhm.
And then, I'm going to share this screen with you.
Sure.
Roberto Ascioli specifically has this beautiful map, at least I think it's a beautiful map, called the egg diagram, which this is his map of the human psyche. So down here, number one, we have the lower unconsciousness, and this is also where most of our past is. So uh, bad experiences from childhood, even good experiences from childhood, anything that is in our past lives in this lower section. So it's not bad, though sometimes it's where harder things to deal with sometimes reside. Then up here in 2 is the middle unconsciousness. That's where when our mind is actually paying attention to what's going on around us, it's usually paying attention to the middle unconsciousness. And then the higher unconsciousness is the future. It is the qualities of relating to values and ethics quite often. Then up down here, because it likes to jump around a little bit, we've got the field of consciousness. So when thoughts pop in, that's where they're showing up, is our field of consciousness. The number 5 is our I, the conscious self. So when we think of I am a self, that's that spot inside of our field of consciousness. And then 6 is the one that a lot of people kind of wonder about, because it's our transpersonal self, or some people call it our higher self. Jolie often called it just the self with a capital S, that part of us that is like a dynamic, creative energy that flows into our conditioned experience. So often when people have peak experiences, their divine experiences, they're touching this transpersonal self. And then the 7th is the collective unconsciousness. That's what Jung talks about in a lot of his work. The symbols come in from that place and then get filtered through these other aspects of our experience. And like with what's going on in the world at the moment, I know that when I'm feeling some of the fears I've been experiencing live down here in the lower unconsciousness. It's things about safety, things about like if you were to think of like the hierarchy of needs, a lot of our lower tier hierarchy of needs stuff live in this lower section. And then when I'm out and about and I'm feeling, if I'm having an anxiety response to being out and about, and I'm like, that person just touched their face and now they're touching that piece of fruit that I was thinking of buying, how nice of them. That's fear that's living in that middle consciousness that's popping right into the field of consciousness, because I'm like, why are you wiping your nose and then touching all the things in the store? Why are you doing this? And then, it's like, okay, gotta let that go for the moment.
Because they're used to doing that. That's what they do.
Yeah, it's so easy to do habits that we think are normal, because for so long they've been normal, but nothing's normal anymore.
No, nothing is normal anymore. And even the way that we feel fear, the way that we feel worry is coming across as different, because we're cooped up in luxury, so to speak. The interview that the other one I did today, it's like we have a lot of first world problems happening right now, amongst the death and the illness and the economic recession, like anything that's really happening that's at a massive scale. We also have a heck of a lot of uncomfortable first world problems happening. So we are feeling it differently. So now that we've given everybody a psychology lesson, and hopefully there's still a lot tell me, how are you using psychosynthesis and your knowledge of the human consciousness to combat worry and fear? What are you doing?
Well, there's a few different things that I've been doing. So specifically, you mentioned fear as part of this. So in psychosynthesis, here we go again. We have these ideas, these things called subpersonalities. People might be familiar with it from internal family structures or systems. There are these little bits of ourselves that are separated from our higher self because of trauma or other events in our lives, needing to conform to someone else's opinion or whatever when we were younger. And one of mine is a worry wart, and likes to worry about every single thing it possibly can. So one of the things that I do is and in my mind, their image is of a small child. So I sit them down, I talk to them internally about what's going on. And sometimes I treat them as if it was a parent-child relationship. And then other times I also treat it as I am the individual who is in charge. It is my psyche. You need to be quiet right now. This is not helpful at the moment. Shut up.
Mhm.
And usually they're pretty good about listening to that.
Yeah, it's good to when the train starts to run off, it's really good to know that you are
Mhm.
your own authority. You
Yes.
are your own authority.
Yeah. It's an act. Sometimes we need to enforce our act of will, our agency inside ourselves. We often talk about having agency in the outside world, but we also have agency within ourselves about what we're choosing to think and things like that. Sometimes it's a lot of work to develop the skills to apply that internally versus externally. Sometimes people are great at being like, it's my way or the highway when it comes to the rest of their life, but uh, their internal life is battered back and forth
Yeah,
by either subpersonalities or anything else that's going inside of themselves, and they're not sure what to do with all of that. And
absolutely.
that's like an aspect of self-care, to me anyway, is just the slow, gentle, compassionate practice of being in charge of my internal life. If with if I don't have control of my internal life, I find it harder to have agency in the outer world.
Mhm.
That might not be true for everyone. I know some people, like I said, who are great at expressing agency in the outer world, but not so great at sleeping at night
Yeah,
because of the ways they've treated other people.
yeah. And there's not a single one of us that can escape the aspect of being a fragile flower. We all have fragile flower inside of us somewhere,
Yes.
and we can run away from it and we can hide from it, but it's going to express itself somehow in some way. Um,
Hmm.
and when it does, I mean, you have to be ready for it because it can come with like a tidal wave. And um, I love the idea of just, sitting down with yourself and letting yourself have free roam of your thoughts and then saying, okay, but there's other parts of me here. It's not just one me. There are other parts of me here that can help the parts that are in a state of
Hmm.
fear right now, in a state of worry right now, and having conversations. And you know what? You
Yeah.
can have like 9 or 10 conversations going at once. If you
Oh, yeah.
practice, it's incredible. It's not just, well, my head's going to talk to my heart. You could have 10, 11, 12 aspects of your subconscious talking to each other all at once.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
incredible.
it's a wonderful experience. I recently did an exercise with one of my teachers where you're having a picnic. This bus drives up, and all these people suddenly start coming off of the bus. And it's different aspects of yourself that have suddenly shown up to ruin your picnic. Then you go on the bus and find one that was afraid to get off the bus in the first place, and you sit down and have a discussion with them, and then the bus drives off. And in my experience, I realized that the part that had not chosen to get off the bus, I gave them the chance to be heard and everything, and they drove the bus off. They had a experience that I don't often give that part because it's not a part that I'm comfortable with. So I was like, fine, I guess I need to be nicer to you, pat you on the head.
Yeah, well, you also
Yeah.
hit a really good point there in that you decided to dismiss the parts of you that you didn't want to have a conversation with at that time.
Mhm.
So we have the power to do that too. We can look at what's happening in emotion,
Mhm.
in the train of thoughts and mindset, and say, you know what, not now. And then dig
Mhm.
for the part that we do want to talk to. And that's
Yeah.
not denial, it's not avoidance
No.
necessarily, it's coping.
Mhm. And then along that line, one of the things my teacher said, I'm not sure if it was the same session or a different session, which I hadn't ever thought of, which again goes to the ability to express internal agency, is she was like, you know, you can just tell a subpersonality, no, we're done with you. You're not allowed to say anymore. And I was like, well, of course you can. I never thought of that, but that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I can do that with people, unhealthy people in my external world. Why can't I do that with unhealthy people in my internal world? So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to do that probably with a couple of those. Got it. Nice to know.
And it is infinite. There is so much depth and so many different aspects of ourselves, and you never know when one's going to come up or what's going to be a trigger. And there's also the self-compassion aspect, and just saying, you know what, yeah, there's a really ugly, angry side of me, and there's a side of me that I would not want to show the world at all, and there's a side of me that feels vulnerable, and but that's not who I express myself as.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in along that line, there's in psychosynthesis, there's that the practice of disidentification and self-identification that often we strongly associate ourself with our body, our mind, our emotions, and roles that we take on in life. I'm a coach. I'm a parent. I inadvertently cut someone off and now I'm a jerk, even though it wasn't intentional, things like that. And disidentification is the remembrance that we are these moments, these feelings. Uh, I am this body, but I am more than my body. There is a part of me that doesn't change, that is constant, pure, and aware of itself. And part of psychosynthesis is the practice of glimpsing that part of yourself. As Julie helped, that it for most people will never be able to see it clearly 100% of the time. And he was like, and that's wonderful. It's not about being able to constantly be there, because if we were constantly there, we would be so blessed out of our minds that we wouldn't be getting anything done in the practical aspects of life.
And
so
growth
he
might
was
happen.
more about, yeah, well, it does happen for some people. Some people are like, this is amazing. I don't want to, care about the practical world. Money is such a bad thing and things like that. It's like, yes, money is not the best thing in the world, but also we need some kind of exchange for work. Barter, I love barter, but it's not practical, unfortunately, currently in most of how our society is structured. So we need to be aware and active in our practical realm along with the spiritual realm. It's just part of life.
Yes, yes, indeed. So speaking of life, tell us a little bit more about what life looks like for you right now. What's happening in your business? What's happening in your personal life, your relationships?
Sure. Well, my relationship is healthy but strained, in just like many other people's, and probably luckily not as strained as some others. The strain for us is they're a healthcare worker, so they're still being exposed at levels that sometimes make me go, ah, and then other times make me go, it's fine. Their children are home, so there is no opportunity for any kind of one-on-one time at all, though that would have been tricky with everything else that's going on anyway. It's even trickier when there's children all over the place. And then there's just there's always a quality when there is something going on in the world, where if you're aware of the news or anything like that, that You know, sometimes you sit down with your partner and you're like, did you hear about this? And now it's that, but 1,000 times, if not a bazillion times more. So you have to know, I'm having to be like, I have heard about that. Can we not talk about that? Or they're having to be like, yes, I know these things just happened. Let's talk about something else. And other times we do have to talk about it because one of us needs to have the opportunity to express the pain, pardon me, that they're experiencing with the world or whatever. Business wise, well, I've been starting a new business. Woo, it's what a wonderful, terrifying time to be doing this. Like I was already doing this, and then everything kind of went, and I'm like, well, might as well keep going with it because it's not like I've got anything else to do at the moment. I work as a substitute for libraries when they're not all constantly shut down. So that disappeared all of a sudden. So I'm just like, well, might as well keep going with the thing that I was going to be doing slowly and just keep chugging at it and making it become a thing. So it's good. I was lucky in that most of the coaching I've been doing was already online, so I'd already learned kind of how to use Zoom. I only just found out the other day that there are virtual green screens for it. I was like, this is fantastic. Now I've got a very pretty image of the synthesis egg that I sometimes put up behind me when I'm doing conversations and such, and then I can go and see it would be like right there, you know, or whatever when things come up. And there's this sense that a lot of people have, in my experience, that things are going to be going back to normal.
Say more.
There is the normal that we've know or knew is gone. There we might get some aspects of that back. We will probably get a number of aspects of that back, but we need to create a new normal. Part of that process is going to be being aware of social distance. In a lot of cultures, that's going to be hard for people. Some cultures are so dedicated to physical closeness that it will be hard for them to learn new ways of acting. There are people who have died, and which is heartbreaking. There have been millions at this point of people who have died. I believe my numbers are correct. If not, we'll use it as a figurative number at the moment. And that's going to ripple out throughout our species, both, you know, practically and on a psycho-spiritual level. There is a lot of grief happening in the world at the moment, and that's not going to end when we're allowed to go hang out with each other again and things. There's still going to be this tremendous amount of grief that is sitting with the psychic field of our species for a long time. And we'll need to learn how to grieve in ways that we've not grieved before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you think about grieving and you immediately think about giving somebody a hug or receiving hugs and physical comfort. And
Mm-hmm.
in terms of relationships, in terms of anything, that we've lost a love language. We've lost an
Mm-hmm.
entire love language, and there is
Yes,
a
which
lot
is
of
my primary love language.
it is mine too. Yeah, I've talked about it in some of the other interviews, how my body is physically responding to not being able to give touch for hours and hours each day, and to be able to receive it too. So we're almost being forced to find a different way to connect. I mean, I can be so bold to say that we're connecting psychically a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have technology as the medium, but
Mm-hmm.
we are definitely having to learn how to kind of ride the wavelengths in order to connect with each other, to feel
Yeah.
each other out, to use our intuition to know when it's a text bubble how somebody's really feeling, even
Mm-hmm.
more so now than before any of this happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There's a need for there's a need for compassion compassion within ourselves and with other people. So, because you and I and maybe some other people we know might be particularly good at listening to the tone of a text and knowing, we might be familiar enough with the person to know what that tone is. Well, there's plenty of people who I've met who do not have that talent and always think that we're take things too much at face value of the text, which that's a whole other conversation about how to communicate correctly, and that we don't have time for at the moment. But also just not knowing what the person is trying to, the emotion that someone is trying to convey. So much of our conversation is nonverbal. It's the way we are leaning in, is the way we're sitting back, it's the way we're going like this or anything like that. So when we're having to use text more, unless we know the person or have other talents, then there is a missing element that people are needing to learn or are not going to learn, and they're going to have to start video calling people more often. So
I have noticed that voice calls are happening more than texts lately. People are shifting, even if they're not more comfortable with video yet. They are getting more comfortable with actually picking the phone up and using their voice. And so what do you think? Like, I know this is on the spot now. This was not in the questions that I sent you all, but we're on topic. So what kind of evolution do you think you're going to see in relationship?
We're going to see unfortunate or fortunate, in some cases fortunate, in some cases unfortunate, increase in divorce in the next few years as a fallout of everyone having to be confined with each other for extended periods of time. And for some people that will be fortunate because they will be like, oh, you know what? This doesn't work, does it? And it will hopefully be amicable, and everyone will be like, you know what? Yeah, no, this doesn't work, and it will end cleanly. For other people, it will be messy. But the biggest change in relationships, both romantic, personal, friendship, business, is that there's going to be a bigger need for clarity of value. We need to know what our values are. We need to know how our values are expressed in our relationships, how we want to express them, and then also what we're willing to put up with. If you know what your big no's in life are, I don't want someone who talks to me like a child. I don't want to go back to a job that makes me work 65 hours a week for $11.20 an hour. If you know that and you can see what you want instead, you can see your value is, I want my value, like for that money related one, the value for that person might be my my self-worth is not tied to overworking. That's not the best expression of that, but
that's okay.
I'm still working some of these out. So you were going to say something, please do.
Yeah, the word that's coming up that summarizes everything that you were just saying is integrity. So both personal integrity in how you're treating yourself inside, how you're talking to yourself inside, and also the integrity of being able to hold somebody and accept them for who they are or not, and be honest about that. So both outward integrity and personal integrity is going to come to the forefront and be less superficial, is not going to be acceptable anymore.
No. And it will be interesting because there will be some people who will try to take advantage of the lack of communication and things through text and such to be more superficial. But they will themselves. There will be times when it will be easier to realize when someone is being superficial with us, because we there'll be more desire for deep, meaningful connection.
Mhm.
If you have a desire for a deep, meaningful connection, then you don't want to put up with people who have no integrity, who only want to talk about surface level things, who only care about things that you have no interest in.
Oh, wait, so our
I'm not going
bullshit,
to
our,
judge people on what their interests might be, because they might be very important to those people, but not be an interest of mine. But
so what
it's,
you're trying to
yeah.
say is that our bullshit filter is going to heighten.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I
Yeah,
think
because like, yeah, like it's an interesting one. Like, I have some friends who dislike when someone just asks you how you doing,
mhm.
because so often people expect a simple answer to that question. And I'm like, well, then don't give them a simple answer. Give them a complex answer. How are you doing? I'm tired. That's one I give to people a lot. Or, how you doing? I'm hungry. And people just are
Right. Yeah.
absolutely shocked that I gave them an honest answer. And I'm like, you asked how I was doing, so I told you. So just, I guess that's one of the things that people can learn. If you want to find out whether you want to continue interacting with a person, when they ask you how you're doing, tell them how you're doing and see if they freak out and run away.
Mhm.
Because sometimes they will. And you're like, oh, well, thank you for solving that problem for me.
Mhm.
Now I know that you're not someone who wants to have an in-depth conversation.
Right. And the other thing that I heard somebody else talking about in terms of finding out who your tribe really is throughout all of this is
Mhm.
to not contact anybody for a couple of days and see who reaches out to check on you.
I can see where that would be helpful. That to I see some tricky things around that personally, because with so much going on in people's lives with their own emotional content at the moment,
Mhm.
they might not, they might care but not have the ability or the bandwidth
Right.
to be reaching out. So it's, there's a play on that of being like, okay, being aware of your friends and knowing, okay, this person has general anxiety disorder.
Right.
If they don't reach out to me, then I know, then it's probably nothing to do with that they don't care, that they're quite possibly wrapped up in a blanket at the moment going, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. So, it's
Yeah.
another level of awareness around that.
So I said that statement kind of as a, you know, how
Mhm.
there's trick questions. I said that as a trick statement because I did want you to go into that. I wanted you to expand on, it's not just me. It's not just,
Mhm.
oh, who's my tribe? Who's going to check on me? But after a couple of days, if somebody does reach out, it's generally because they need some help. And
Yeah.
and so yes, they genuinely care and they want to know how you're doing, but
Mhm.
find out why they haven't reached out for a couple of days. And
Mhm.
then that deepens the level of relationship that you have
Mhm.
that exists already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just thought of something cute to share that might inspire inspire everyone. So my partner and her children do not live with me, and one of the things that we've been doing is we both have access to Disney Plus.
Hmm.
So we set down the time when the four of us are going to watch a movie together. We text each other, okay, we're hitting play now. And then she and I text back and forth about the movie as we were doing it. We just watched Onward, which is the new Pixar movie. And we were just, both of us going, oh my God, I am crying so much. Fuck you, Pixar. How the hell did you manage to do this yet again? And things like that throughout the movie. And then also, take a pause because everyone needs to go rehydrate because everyone's been crying like crazy. And it's just a way to share an experience, even if you can't be there with the people that you love and care about.
Yep. Do things at the same time. That's like synchronicity and working together. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love all
Yeah,
that.
and there's those synchronicity moments that of, oh, I was just thinking about that person, let me reach out, and you find out they've been having a bad day. And then there's the let's make this happen synchronicity of, we're going to actively apply our agency, woo, of we're choosing to do these things at the same time because we want that level of connection
Yeah.
with each other.
Yeah, I think that through all of this, through all of the creative ways that we are learning how to be in relationship with each other, there's a solidarity that's happening that's unlike anything our generation has seen. So
Yeah.
I think that that's going to be my new, in what ways can I participate in solidarity is my new theme for this, for 2020.
Okay, so what is one of the top ways you're going to do that?
Well, the summit is one of the ways, just finding ways to network and connect with people. And it's without forcing, right? It's, I'm doing this. Everybody's volunteered. I mean, I asked, but they could say no, but like you reached out and volunteered. So it's a networking and emerging and creating an egg of community in ways that doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like salesy or anything like that. And just continuing to participate in being in the network, being in the spider web. As a member and a leader of the community, and at the same time allowing that to kind of integrate and assimilate in my own heart, and finding ways to speak to all of my different aspects and seeing what they need and asking for them, asking for help when I need it. That's solidarity.
How are you doing on the asking for help?
Oh, great. I have whole scrolls of messages here.
Yay, good.
Which is
well, I remember at one point you told me that you were a bit of a workaholic and a bit of a perfectionist. And my experience with those personality types is they're not always very good about making sure to reach out for help. So just making sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. How much do I owe you?
The exposure from this will be plenty. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, this is I've been working on that for a couple of years now. But experiences like this, I mean, when everything that is actually a priority surfaces, and you realize that, when I realize, I'll speak from when I realize that there are just a lot of things falling away that never mattered, then it's that's the wake-up call to say I need help. And I actually just watched a TED talk that my friend Nancy sent me, and it was all about releasing the stigma of mental health and how it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to talk about emotion. It's okay to say, I'm not okay. And there have been plenty of days since I've stopped working that I've been like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I really need a hug and I can't get one, and I'm not okay. So it can be just a simple rule of thumb for me. I check on somebody else when I'm feeling crappy because I'm selfish and I get to talk about my feelings too. So we have that equal exchange there.
Yeah, that's a great way. It sounds like you've learned ways to make sure that you are getting two different aspects of yourself needs met. You're being busy by being like, so what's been going on with you? And then you're getting that chance to, what is that Yiddish word? Kavitz? I'm going to drop my Yiddish because apparently I don't remember any of it. But you're getting the chance to just talk it out, talk about your experience also. Can I ask a question around that? Would you be okay with that?
Oh, sure. This is turning into me.
How often have you been doing it the other way around and being like, I need to talk, versus how are you doing?
So this is a vulnerable moment for me because I am being recorded, and it'll be up to me to press post when the time comes, but I'm going to go ahead and say, there have been some amazing people that have reached out to me to ask me the question, but I haven't done much reaching out to say I need help without asking them first. So that's,
Mhm.
it
How's
has
that
happened,
feel?
but yeah, that's rare for me. So, because I'm trained to be a space holder, I'm trained to be the one that is holding for other people. So
Mhm.
it is tough. It's definitely tough.
So can I ask a couple more questions? Would you be okay with that? I know that we're going kind of way off book
We
all
are way. When are
of
you
a
gonna do that
sudden, but
meditation you were gonna do?
well, maybe that can be another time or something.
Yeah, no, this is important, and
If
I'm
you're comfortable, would it be okay if I ask a couple of follow-up questions about that though?
yeah. I think that I'm more than happy to be a guinea pig, and one of my quotas is, "I'm not afraid to be afraid." So go for it.
Okay. Okay. So since how have you thought about it that you're not giving people the opportunity to learn how to hold space when you don't ask them to hold space for you?
So I'm gonna go ahead and say that I'm pretty good at asking for what I need. I don't come right out and
Okay.
say I need, but I have a lot of I feel words.
Okay.
I start conversations with I feel sometimes.
Okay.
So maybe that's along if they, maybe because I don't know what I need in the moment, but I know how I feel.
Hmm.
So there's layers to that, right? So
Right.
folks, my friends, my besties definitely know when I say I feel that it's time to hold space for me.
Hmm. All right. Good. So when was the last time you told anyone that?
Today, actually at 5:30.
Good.
Yes,
Good.
actually I brought up the love languages in this interview
Mm-hmm.
because I was talking about that with another person, and I did say, I said I need and I feel in that conversation.
Good. Were you listened to?
Yes, very much so.
Yay, wonderful. So when's the next time you're going to be direct and honest with someone?
Well, it's my mission to be that way all the time. So,
It's your mission, but that's not what I asked you.
yeah. I My next conversation outside of this interview is
Mhm.
with my son, and I'm feeling like I'm going to need a walk because I've been sitting at my computer all day. So I'm going
Mhm.
to express to him that I need a walk and invite him to come with me.
And what's going to happen if he says no, thank you?
I'll go by myself.
Good. How's that feel?
Fine. That we do that all the time.
Good. Good.
Yeah. And I know that that's not necessarily, that's not a good example because that's just the relationship my son and I have. So, I'll come up with better content for you.
You don't
Um,
necessarily need to. So let me ask it in a slightly different way, and we'll see if we can if that might uh, be a little more clear for what I'm wondering about.
sure.
Um, how are you you're doing a lot of supporting. How are you being supported? I know you said you've got a lot of people who've been you've got all those messages on the phone.
Mhm.
You have been making sure that when your besties know when you say I feel that you have they know that you're needing space held for you. You have a lot on your shoulders at the moment though. Are you taking enough time for you?
Yeah, so I am.
Good.
I have my own meditation practice. I have
Hmm.
a movement practice, yoga, kundalini, things like that.
Hmm.
I'm making sure that I'm doing the appropriate amount of, balance through video games. I know we chatted about that too before this recording, and I am
Hmm.
definitely doing. I'm on my little games and
Good.
taking moments to just veg without having to think about the emotionality of all of this. Um,
Good.
do I feel like I'm doing enough? No, because there are the workaholic parts of me are trying to create a structure and a busyness. So
Okay.
that does exist, in that part of me
Mhm.
reaching out is sometimes me just creating busy.
Okay. So what would happen if you weren't busy?
If I wasn't busy, not much different. I would,
Okay.
I would walk and yoga and meditate and
Okay.
go in really deep, and yeah,
Okay. So why do you need to be busy then?
that's just an aspect of me. It's one of the aspects of me. If we can go into the whole, let's go back to childhood and never feeling like I was enough. And I'm not going to go any further with that on this recording.
That's fine. This is not a full-on session or anything. That's so. When was the last time you actually took a day off?
Oh, yeah, the whole weekend. I didn't work
Okay,
this
good,
weekend. Yeah.
good. All right,
Yeah.
good. We covered all the things I wanted to make sure that you were doing for yourself. Yay!
Well, I thank you for making me
You're welcome.
feel uncomfortable and take a look at myself and check in and make sure that I was doing what I needed to do so that I stayed whole in myself, in my
Mhm.
relationship with myself, and in my current relationships. So
Good.
I realize that I am not the best version of being a friend if I'm not taking care of myself and if I'm not reciprocating by saying I need as well. So
Exactly. That was a little bit of what I was hoping that you had the realization already of. I was going to see, that's why I was asking the questions is if we want to be a good friend, we need to offer people the opportunity to be good friends to us
yes.
also.
Oh, I have some of those.
Good.
They show up and they be my friends whether I want them to be or not. I always
Mhm,
want them to be, but they know when to insert themselves aggressively. So
mhm. Good,
yes,
good.
assertively assert
Mhm.
themselves. I don't know.
They know when you need them to show the fuck up.
There you go.
There you go.
Yes, and they know when to tell me to get over myself too. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Good.
love it, love it. Well, I don't know. What was the meditation? You can send a link to what that meditation was.
Sure, I will.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it was part of an essay by another psychosynthesis, one of the leading psychosynthesis teachers in the world at the moment, PIERO FERRUCCI. FERRUCCI? Yes,
I
that's as
think
close
you
as
said it right.
I'm going to get to his name anyway at the moment. Called "Where the Virus Cannot Touch," which is a meditation similar to the disidentification exercise, but it's more rooted in remembrance of our values, those things that we value, hold of value, such as justice, beauty, friendship, kindness, and what the world will be like or could be like if we take this opportunity to be in ourselves, aware of our values, and then start to express those values more consistently in the world that's becoming.
Awesome. Well, if you give me that link, I'll make sure that I post it so people can do the meditation
I
and
will.
practice that. It's not just a practice for now in these times, it's a practice to use continually through the rest of our
Exactly.
lives, because
Yeah.
we will evolve or devolve, and
Yes.
it'll be a continuous learning experience.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely send that to you. It's the article, the essay he wrote. It's a nice long essay, but it was also like, oh, there's all of my heart is apparently being displayed in this essay that I did not even write. Oh, it was a beautiful piece, and I'll make sure to send it to you.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I'll make sure I share it with our guests and our viewers as well.
Wonderful.
So, the last question that I ask
Mhm.
everybody is, if you had one message to give to our global community right now, what would that be?
Kindness is the most needed thing in the world at the moment. It is tempting to buy all of the things that we need or that we think we need and leave nothing for anyone else. But that's not kind.
Mm.
It's not kind to have to see older people who can only get to the store once or twice a month walk down an completely empty aisle and not be able to get the things they need. It's not kind to be driving around playing the plague siren, which people have been doing, not the plague, what's that stupid movie? The Purge siren in people's neighborhoods. What is kind is if you have an extra loaf of bread and you have a elderly neighbor who you haven't, who you know does get out but might not be able to get out as much, take it over, leave it next to the door, ring the doorbell, step back 6 or 7 feet, say, I brought you this, go home. Don't even necessarily wait for them to say thank you. You know, just do kindness to the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kindness is the best way to express that solidarity that we all need right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, Erik, if folks want to feel vulnerable and uncomfortable and get questioned like you just did for me, how do they get a hold of you?
So the best way to get a hold of me at the moment is through the Facebook link that I will be sending you also. It is Love Multiplies Coaching on Facebook. There's not a whole lot there yet. I just made it yesterday. So there will be things coming, folks. Hang on. And you can send me a message there. It is currently the easiest way to get a hold of me. And there are links to some of the other ways to get a hold of me there as well.
Very good. Thank you again so much for it. You volunteered. We didn't know each other. Like some of these people that I'm interviewing, folks don't realize I've never had a relationship with them before.
Mm-hmm.
Erik and I literally just met, 10 minutes before we hit record. So thank you for reaching out. Thank you for sharing interest. Thank you for diving in deep on so many different topics today. I enjoyed it. Hopefully others do too.
Wonderful.
And
Good.
yeah, that's it. That's all we have. Do you have any more to say before we hang up?
This was fun. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
If you're looking for someone to be interviewed by, she's great.
Thanks for that little shout out. I appreciate it.
You're
all right,
welcome.
That's all we have for today. So stay tuned for tomorrow's interview. We still have more to come. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye, everyone.